This week on the Storycraft Society, we are going to be diving into making these cool little merchant tents. It's a quick craft that's only going to take us a couple of hours to complete.
What do you need? What do you need, precious pup?
Welcome back to the channel, everybody. My name is Garmin. This, of course, is the Storycraft Society, and this week we are diving into a quick craft. Now, a quick craft is a craft that should only take us one afternoon to complete normally. Now, this one is going to take a little bit of dry time overnight. A little bit of background, I've been having one heck of a time crafting lately. Cue the footage here.
Well,
damn. That sucks. So I've really needed a couple of softball crafts, something that just gets me back into it and I don't have to think about messing up so much. So that's a perfect opportunity for a quick craft, and making these little merchant tents is fun, it's easy, and you get a little craft on your table really, really quick. Also, I had some really neat new paper towels that I wanted to try as scale cloth. So that's gonna be part of this video also, and I'm pretty excited with the results, so I can't wait to show you that. All that said, let's jump into it. All right, so to get started, we have a bunch of pieces that I cut up. I did not cut up any identifiable amount of any of them. I just cut up a whole bunch, and however many I can make out of this much stuff is what I'm gonna make. 1/4 by 1/4, 1/4 by 1/2, 1/8 by 1/4, and 3/16 by 3/16. So these are going to be the straight up and down posts. These are going to be the ones that go across like this. These are going to be the side pieces, the ones that run on kind of the outside edges of it. And then these I cut really kind of as an afterthought, but I think these are going to be the pieces that are like this. You know, you got a post here and a post here with these slats kind of across this way. This is just going to be what holds the cloth up. So this is what we've got, so let's get on to texturing them all up, and then we'll start gluing some stuff together. One little trick that I've actually learned for using a wire brush tool to texture and make wood texture on your foam is actually that I don't like using metal wire brushes because I feel like they rip my foam more often than not. The plastic wire brush is really nice, but the problem is that if you run like this or you run like this, I don't know, I feel like I don't get a really good deep groove. Sometimes that's okay, but sometimes I want a deeper, more aggressive groove. So what I found is if you go to this end of your wire brush and you pinch it with your fingers so that you end up doing that like this. Then what you can do is take, and now you've made the bristles really sturdy because you're kind of supporting them with your fingers. And then you can go over and be pretty aggressive with how hard you push. And I find that it doesn't rip the foam, but it does leave much deeper grooves. So you get a much deeper wood grain and you don't have to worry about the foam ripping, which is awesome. So with all my pieces cut out, it was time for me to start assembling them. Now, I pulled out a piece of just blank paper and a mini to use for scale. Now, what I really like about this is it gives me scale so I don't end up making it so tall that it looks ridiculous next to a mini, but also I don't end up making it too small so then it makes the mini look like it's cramped next to it. But what I did was I started to sketch out what I saw in my head onto a piece of paper so I knew what I was going to be doing going forward. So with that done, it was time to make a cut list. Just so you know, the cut list that's on screen right now is for one tent. So if you just want to make one of these, that's what you need. Multiply it by however many tents you plan on making. Now to assemble them, I pulled out my hot glue gun and I began putting the sides together. What I decided to do was do the outside sides, a right and a left, make those right first, and then use my 1/2 inch beam to go across the top. So you need one of those 1/2 inch beams across the front and you need one of them across the back. But with that done, I realized that I had enough to make 3 tents. Stoked about that. I ended up with 3. Really happy with that number. The final 2 things that I did was I used my 3/16 beams to make the diagonal here. That's just going to hold up the cloth a little better on the top of the tent. And then the last thing that I did was I added these little triangles of wood that kind of go up in the corners. I don't know what actual strength they would give to a structure in real life, but I thought that they looked cool. They added a little bit of ornamentation past just the bare bones structure, and I'm really pleased with how they turned out. On to the exciting part. So I pulled out my Viva paper towel towels. Now, the whole reason that I was excited to try these, I actually specifically bought them when I was in the store for this purpose, is that they say they are a signature cloth paper towel. A lot of times the paper towels that you'll buy will have some kind of design on them that makes them maybe be more absorbent, but I think it's just more like from a decorative standpoint, and it makes it really hard when you're using those paper towels for crafting, because then you get that unfortunate paper towel look as part of your cloth. If you're not too particular, that's not a big deal. I have made a lot of things with paper towels and had that paper towel texture, but I wanted to try something a little bit different this time. So I went with Viva paper towels that have no texture and are supposedly like cloth. So to get this stage going, I pull out my Elmer's glue and my watered down Elmer's glue, and I get those ready, and then I start to cut out the Viva paper towel so that it is the general shape, the general size that I want for on top of my tent. This next part is all about patience, just messing with it slowly and slowly until you get it to sit right. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pull out my Elmer's glue and I'm gonna put it where all the contact points of my cloth are going to be. That's gonna be across the top, that's gonna be down the little braces, and that's gonna be on the back. Once I have that done, then I'm gonna pull out the watered down PVA glue and soak the paper towel in it. The thing to remember here is that the more watered down your PVA glue is, the less firm it's going to dry in the end. It's also going to be less sticky initially, but also it's going to soak in better. So there's the balancing act. If you want it to soak into your paper towel more, make sure it's a little bit more on the watered down side. If you want it to be more firm when it's finished drying, then you want to go with a more PVA heavy watered down mix. So I soaked that all up, I put it in place, and then I let it sit overnight. This stuff takes a day and forever to dry. I mean, not really, it doesn't take that long. Overnight should be more than enough time, but I mean, it really feels like it takes forever to dry. And that is the only reason that this is not something that you could do in one afternoon or evening of crafting, because you have to sit and let that stupid paper towel dry forever. But like I said, let it dry overnight, and then when you wake up, you should be able to go look at it and it will look something like this. Moving on to the painting step, the first thing I'm gonna do is throw Black Magic Craft base coat over the whole thing. That's just a 50-50 mixture of black acrylic craft paint and matte Mod Podge. What I really like about this is actually confirmed by Jeremy. When I actually did my Black Magic Craft video, he actually commented and said that he doesn't even really do it on tiles and that sort of thing anymore. What he does it on is stuff like this. The weaker and thinner the foam, the more the Black Magic Craft base coat is going to add strength to it. And I just really believe that to be the case. You will feel a huge difference on a piece like this with thin pieces of foam as soon as you put the Black Magic Craft base coat on and let it dry. Also, just being honest, it's nice to just do one step and get the black undercoat on there, because we're going to be using that to our advantage for both the cloth and painting the wood. Speaking of painting the cloth and the wood, we're going to start painting the cloth with two colored paints. Actually, we're going to only use two colored paints. We're going to be using a khaki and a buttermilk. We're going to start that off by putting a very watered down khaki over all of the cloth. The reason that I'm doing it very watered down is because I want it to make sure to get down obviously into all of the nooks and crannies, but also I like that it gives variation, that once it dries, there's going to be different colors of khaki and black, and it's going to keep it looking natural and not just one flat color. We're going to do that exact same thing with the buttermilk next. That's going to bring it back up to a much brighter, more white looking cloth. If you like that look, you could stop there. I wanted mine to look a little bit more weathered and dirty, so then I dry brushed over the whole thing with that original khaki again, just to get a little bit of dirt stains over the top. Actually, there is one little trick tip that I can give you. I didn't paint any of the buttermilk underneath, and the reason for that is that one, it's shadowed under there, so you want it to be a little darker than where the light's hitting it up top, but also no one's going to be looking under there, so it's kind of a waste of time. All you need is just that undercoat of khaki so that from the front you can see a little bit of color in there, and that's it. Save yourself a little time. I hate painting, I hate painting, I hate painting, so anything that I can do to make that stage easier, I'm going to do it. But let's move on to wood. So wood is going to be three colors. It's going to start with a territorial beige, then I'm going to do a pewter gray, and lastly I'm going to end with a coffee latte. All of these colors that I pick Do not think that you have to get these exact colors, just get something close, and honestly, variation can turn out a lot of different ways with both cloth and wood. Try some different things. Try colors that you already have. I'm sure they will turn out great. But we're going to start by going over the wood with a very watered down territorial beige. This is going to be a lot like what we did with the khaki on the cloth, but we're going to be shooting for variation and also getting down into the nooks and crannies. The next step is going to be going over the top with a wet overbrushing of the pewter gray, and that's going to be just grabbing the upper parts. Now, if you notice, natural looking wood actually has a lot of gray tones in it, so I always like to add a little bit of gray into all of the wood that I paint. The final step is going to be to go over the exact same way that we did with the gray with a coffee latte, just getting a little bit more variation and bringing a little bit more brown back into the wood. But that's it. Let that dry, and we have these cool little merchant tents. I'm really pleased with how they turned out. This is something that you could use these for a lot of different things. They could be as part of a camp scene. Honestly, I keep calling them merchant tents just because that's what I thought of them in my head as, but there's a lot of different things that you could do with little, like pavilion, maybe pavilion's not the right term, but you know what I mean. There's lots of things that you could do with something like this. With that said, here's a quick craft. I really enjoyed making these. Hopefully you enjoy making them too. If you do, definitely share what you've made with us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, any of that stuff. Tag us, and I would love to see what you've been working on. Honestly, nothing brightens my day more than when someone says, hey, here's this craft that I made because of Garmin. So, if you enjoyed this content, please consider subscribing. Leave me a like down below. Leave a comment down below of a use that you would have for these little tents, or just say hi. I like hearing from people and I enjoy all the interaction. Show this video to a friend if you think that they would enjoy it. Craft some of these for your dungeon master. They would love you for it. Or if you're a dungeon master, craft some of these because your players will love it. But that's all I have for this week. So until next week, I'll be seeing you.